So let's talk about your cost-cutting program. You announced it last year. It involved, among other things, laying off or transferring about 1,200 employees. Where do you stand now in that program? How close are you to completion?
So there are different parts of the programs. Some are reorganization, and most has been done so far. But there are other parts which will take longer. And one part, for example, is about data and technology and AI and how we leverage that. That's a multi-year program. So there are different stages progressing at different pace.
So still progress to make there. I want to talk a little bit about sales because it caught my eye that back in December you divested your generic drug joint venture that you have with Teva. Should we expect more sales along those sorts of lines?
Well, in the last few years, we have refocused the entire business to innovative medicines. So we used to be in the generic business. We used to be in the OTC business. We divested those. So we are now entirely focused on innovative medicines. So that's really to finish that refocus. So not many divestment to come anymore.
So when folks say innovation, they often mean that they're also looking at buying things. And we're sitting here at the JPMorgan Health Care Conference. There have been a lot of deals announced, and there's just a lot of optimism about the M&A landscape under a second Trump administration. How are you thinking about your M&A strategy right now?
So we are entirely focused on our pipeline and having a very innovative pipeline. We are actually at a very exciting stage right now because we have 6 new medicines in late stage in phase 3. And so, for example, this year we'll have 3 phase 3 readout. This pipeline value is between 10 and 20 billion US dollars, so it's very material for us. Now, if you look at these 6 late stages, some came from business development, from in-licensing. So that has been our focus for now many years, which is to enrich our pipeline through very targeted in-licensing and business development.
Interesting. And let's talk a little bit more about that pipeline in the context, of course, of your upcoming patent expiries. You have Vyvanse, that's your ADH drug. That is expected to lose its exclusivity in the coming months and years. And I'm wondering, what is in the pipeline that can potentially offset the loss of that patent?
So Vyvanse lost actually its patent 2 years ago. So we are at the end of the genericization. So that's behind us. Between now and 2031, our generic exposure is very limited. We have 10 growth and launch products which are driving our growth drivers. So that we will grow with this 10 product between now and 2031. And our pipeline that we will launch starting in 2026 will be our next growth drivers because we'll have a new generic exposure starting in 2031. So that's the stage, that's the phase that we are seeing for the future.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification there. Let's talk, though, about upcoming competition. You have a best-selling ulcerative colitis drug as well. Of course, competition there is expected to come in the next few years. How do you plan to navigate that? I'm sure this is a situation you've been in before.
Yeah, this is our leading medicines, very important for IBD patients. This is the best treatment today, the leading one. A lot of competition, but so far no treatment have had a higher efficacy and safety than this product. So we are very confident that it will continue to grow until it is facing biosimilars, probably in 2031-32. Yeah.
And I know when it comes to your pipeline, 2 areas that you're working on, of course, psoriasis, narcolepsy, and I want to focus in on psoriasis because there's a lot of psoriasis drugs on the market right now. You have a phase 3 drug in trials right now. What differentiates that versus some of the competition that's out there?
Well, we believe it could be the best oral treatment on the market to treat psoriasis. So right now, biologics, injectable are the efficacy standards. We believe that this oral treatment could have an unmatched efficacy for oral treatment. So it could really help the use of more oral treatment, which are more convenient for patients. So we are very enthusiastic about it. It's in phase 3. We'll have the readout in 2025. And so very excited.
Can you give me a little more color on when in 2025?
We'll see when the trial, it's difficult to predict depending on the trial enrollment, but let's say this calendar year 2025. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put a pin in that one.
Yeah.
But let's talk about other big themes, of course, at this conference. A lot of focus on deal making, a lot of focus on the obesity market, as you would expect. What are you specifically doing in the obesity market? How are you thinking about it?
So we are focusing on the GI, oncology, and neuroscience. So we are not focusing on obesity. So this is something that we are not interested in. Neuroscience, oncology, and GI and inflammation is quite vast. So there is a lot to do in this space. Yeah.
Something I always wonder: do you feel any sense of FOMO when it comes to the obesity market? Fear of missing out, or you just really focus on sticking to your lane here?
Well, of course, it's a great story. There is a huge unmet medical need. This market has developed very, very fast, but it's becoming extremely competitive very rapidly. You need to have a know-how to compete in that market. We don't have this know-how because we focus on neuroscience, oncology, and GI. And, we take some big risks with potential big rewards in other diseases like Alzheimer's, for example.
Yeah, talk about big risk, big reward. Alzheimer's obviously fits that bill. I do want to talk a little bit about the political landscape. Of course, we're about a week away from Donald Trump's inauguration. And you think about your company in particular, you're based in Japan. The U.S. is your biggest market, though, when it comes to revenue. How worried are you about potential tariffs and just the geopolitical risk that might arise there?
Well, we'll see what happens. I hope that healthcare or pharmaceutical will remain protected from geopolitical tension or tariff, because innovation in healthcare, in pharma, come from many different countries, many different biotechs. So if you start to have geopolitical tension or tariff or no access, it means that some medicines won't have access and patients will suffer. So my plea is that pharmaceutical healthcare should stay away from any geopolitical tension or tariff.
Well, we should find out soon enough there.
See.
And I have about time for one question left with you. And I want to talk about what you're doing in China, because you've been aggressively partnering with Chinese biotech companies. And you think about the U.S. and the Chinese relationship, a lot of concern, a lot of questions over what that will look like under the second Trump administration. Could that give you any pause when it comes to that strategy?
So there is more innovation in China. It's still limited compared to the US, and we should actually remember that 80% of the new medicines in the world come from the US, so this is something very important. We are growing very fast in China, but because of the geopolitical risk, we have been very careful not to have any dependency on China. So in case there is a bigger tension, we will not be impacted. So that has been our strategy. So we are quite de-risked when it comes to the geopolitical risk US-China.